Everything is good. How you're doing?
I'm great. It's Saturday. I'm still here and ready to rock and roll.
Great. Firstly, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to interview you for my channels.
Well, I appreciate the invite. I know we've been trying to go back and forth for a while to schedule something, so I'm happy we could finally make it happen.
So I've gone through your profile. I can see you have done a lot of work and also you're doing great work right now, in the present role. So I thought to tell about your work to my audience.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, I'm a Microsoft specialist, and I've been in IT for now over 25 years. I don't want to tell my age, so I'm not going to say the exact amount. We'll just say over 25 years. And my specialty has really always been Microsoft. So I started kind of with a background of Visual Basic and ASP, which is an old application programming for web interfaces. And over the years, I've moved into things like SharePoint, BizTalk, Azure, uh, Power Platform, Microsoft Fabric. But the majority of my career has been based around Microsoft skill sets. So that's been my bread and butter. So I live in Houston, Texas. And in Houston, we have a heavy oil and gas presence. So a lot of the companies work in the oil and gas field or medical. We have all different types of industries, but those are kind of some of the heavy industries. And so a lot of those companies use Microsoft products as kind of the backbone of a lot of the, daily IT work that they do. So it was very easy for me to kind of make a career out of using Microsoft products just for that reason. So that's kind of why I've stayed more on the Microsoft side. I know, people have done Java, Oracle, this one, that one, but for me, it's been more of a just what is the best fit for the city and the industries that, I'll be able to work in. So what's interesting about that though is with everything that happened with the pandemic and COVID-19 is that now I'm able to work remotely, anywhere in the country, basically. So with that comes the ability to work with different, industries and different teams and, things of that nature. But even with that, I'm still in the Microsoft space. Just I've expanded my branch outside of Houston. I've had clients in, Ohio. I've had clients in Florida. I've had clients in California and Washington State and so on and so forth. So that's, kind of where we are as far as the daily work that Unifire does. Um, but I also do a couple of other things. So I've done some IT staffing where we place people at companies and, they work via Unifire. I've had a couple of people out at companies here in Houston that have worked for me. And then we also do, kind of custom software design. So building software from scratch. I've had a couple of products that I've built in the past. And so, a little bit of each one of those is kind of my background overall.
So what made you to be in Microsoft for so long?
Yeah, I mean, just, more or less, I was comfortable when I started with the programming languages that they had. When I came into the field, there weren't as many options as probably you guys have today. There were very limited options, right? So you really had like C++, you had Java, you had VB6, and then you had some old things that I won't even go and bother mentioning because probably no one's going to remember them. But those were some of the main, software development platforms. So you really just had to pick one because there weren't like 5,000 to choose from. So you have three or four. You have to pick one of the three or four. So I started with VB because I had some background in doing that from college. And so as I kept moving through my career, Microsoft kept improving their products. So you had .NET, eventually came out around 2001. Then you had, they moved more to SharePoint and some of these other things which still use .NET. They created BizTalk, which also made use of .NET. So all those things as they kept going, it was all kind of still with the same background that I started with. I just kind of, matriculated into some other areas outside of just, doing VB and web programming. But that was the main focus. And that's kind of why I've stuck with Microsoft all these years. And I mean, it's kept me employed. So that's the main thing, really. So, I mean, it doesn't matter what skill you have. If you can't find a job, then that, really makes the skill obsolete. So it's kept me employed. And I think that's the critical part of it.
So as a principal consultant, what you do?
Well, so I'm really the only employee of Unifire at most points in time. I don't carry a, software staff or any kind of engineering staff. So I'm the consultant. I prefer it to be that way. So the name Unifier really means like bringing people together, right? You unify. And that's what I'm good at doing. I'm good at being kind of an IT broker, right? So I have a lot of people in my network that may specialize like in UI design, or they may specialize in database, or they may specialize in networking, right? Whereas my focus is really application programming. So as I go out to different clients, and they may have a problem that I can't solve particularly on my own, I say, hey, you know what? I know this lady, she does, UI design, or I know this guy, he does database, administration, or I know this other person, they specialize in infrastructure. And so as I go out to the different clients and work in the different places, I still try and bring parts of my network into my jobs. And I've done that a lot of places. I've brought people with me, and actually I've had people bring me with them, right, as they go to other places. So, to me, it's all about just networking, being an open networker. And as me as a principal consultant, my job is to go out and sell Unifier and my skill set of what I can do to my client. And then as I find those, little niche areas that I can bring someone in that can help, then I bring them in. And that's kind of where like the unify concept comes into play. So that's my day-to-day role as a principal consultant.
So working for different clients, what kind of expertise or what kind of experts that you have given to different clients? Or
So
can you
main,
tell me some of the requirements?
yeah, yeah, sure. So really what we specialize in is integrations. So a lot of clients, especially after COVID, wanted to move into Azure, because they needed to be more cloud focused and not relying on local data centers or those things. And they had people that were remote working across, different parts of the country. So they wanted to go 100% cloud, or at least hybrid cloud. So really my focus probably the last 10 years has been integrations. So when I say integrations, it really means things like you have a custom like software and you have another custom software, and they don't interact at all. You need to make them interact, because maybe, your marketing team needs to be able to communicate something to the sales team, or maybe you have information in your invoicing system that needs to go downstream to someone in, your corporate back office. Those systems don't always interact out of the box, right? So if I'm someone and I'm implementing, say, Oracle EBS, Oracle EBS does its own system. I mean, its own integrations. It has its own, layers and complexities of things that it does. But then if I need to integrate that with Salesforce, those two have no idea that the other exists, right? So Oracle EBS has its own world. Salesforce has its own world. Well, a lot of the companies, they need to take those and have those products talk to each other, just for the reasons that I gave. So as these companies moved into Azure, what they'll use is things like Azure Data Factory. So that's an ETL tool. So you can use that to move data back and forth between systems. They'll use things like function apps, which you can use Python or C Sharp or, different programming languages for kind of serverless software. So basically, on demand, an endpoint can serve some data or serve some type of function to, another endpoint. They may use things like API management in Azure. So that's kind of securing all your API layer, right? So in dealing with, individual APIs, you can consume APIs, you can publish APIs, so on and so forth. And then you'll have things like logic apps, which are used kind of for business process mapping or business process workflows, right? So I can have a logic app that does a workflow that maybe integrates with, Salesforce, Dynamics, Oracle, SQL, this one and that one. So that is a challenge that I think almost all companies are having. How do they integrate all these different software applications that they have? How do they take them to the cloud? How do they modernize their legacy applications? Because a lot of companies have applications that they wrote, 15, 20 years ago that are still being used. and they want to modernize them so that they can be in the cloud. So, on a daily basis, I see so many job opportunities, so many openings focused around that area, right? We need Azure integration specialist. We need an Azure architect. We need a Power Platform, integration specialist. We need this one, that one. And that's kind of the focus on, I think, where most companies are right now is trying to modernize a lot of their legacy applications. And like I said, a lot of it was driven, I think, by COVID-19 and moving into the cloud. So that's basically, the day-to-day scope of, how integration pieces work.
So these clients that that require different skill set or different experts to work for their businesses. So do they have a limited time of project, or they want these skill set people to work with them for long time?
A little bit of both. So, well, again, driven out of things that have happened in the last 4 years, a lot of clients will do modernization projects. So that's quote unquote, like, we need to modernize this app, right? So when you finish modernizing the app, a lot of times there's no work left, right? That was it. Like, they want to do something, they want to take it to the cloud, you're done. I mean, there's nothing more that you're left to work on. So a lot of focus is project based. So those projects generally run maybe 6 months to a year and a half. I've been on some up to 2 years. A lot of legacy systems are complex, and so companies will try and turn them over really quickly, but then they'll find, oh, this wasn't as easy as we thought. This is integrated into 100 different systems, so it's going to take more time. So sometimes my projects get extended, but for the most part, they are limited. They're, generally, like I said, 6 months to 2 years in scope. And I mean, I think that was even kind of before COVID. I mean, it's kind of always been that way in IT. Most things are project based. You don't just have generally something that just goes on forever. You do a project, spin up something, and then you go into support mode, right? You don't just keep running the same thing over and over and keep developing over and over. Or even if you do, you iterate. You don't build a thing from scratch every time. So for me, it's kind of, a lot of companies do want to extend the relationship, to have you either come on board as a full-time employee or, so on and so forth. But for me, I've kind of preferred being like a consultant because I get to go to different places. I get to meet different people. I get to work in different industries. And I just think I learn a lot more that way. But there definitely are opportunities to come on full-time with clients, and then you would go on to different projects. You wouldn't work just the same project forever or different pieces of it. So yeah, that basically is most companies kind of seem to have that focus. Project based, not like long term. Just
Got it. So I want to know why you have worked on Microsoft from long time, more than 20 plus years, and you know the products, like what how it works and what it is for. And now you become a principal consultant, and you're helping different businesses getting the right experts for them. So why this role for you? What made you to be interested in this?
I mean, so there's different factors in that. I mean, one of them is always going to be pay, right? So we don't work for free, right? We work to put food on the table and to, be able to pay our bills. And so I've, found early in my career that software was a way to, make a good living, right? It's an in-demand field. When I started, it was in demand, and it's actually more in demand now than when I started. So that's number one, first and foremost, is that I needed to find a way to make a living, right? So, and as I came into this industry, I just found, oh, wow, there's a lot of demand for it. And, where there's demand and short supply, that's generally what you want, right? You don't want it to be too crowded, a field that you're working in. So whether that's being a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever it is, you want that kind of demand supply, conundrum. So that's number one. But number two, for me, it's always been an interest. So I grew up kind of as a video game kid, right? Always on a computer, even as a kid. Always playing video games, always doing something kind of in the computer world. Well, also sports. So I like sports too. But one of those two, you'd probably either find me when I was young doing something IT related, even though I didn't know that what that was at that point, but that's what it was, or probably doing something sports related. So I think what a lot of people make the mistake, they get into a field without really having a passion for it, right? So I've always had a passion for anything computer based, anything software based. I remember working on I had an IBM computer in the 80s, and I remember having to do stuff at the command line. And I'm like 12, 13 years old, and there's no internet. There's nothing I can go and look up something and say, oh, how do you do this? You literally just have to sit and read the manual. And if it's not in the manual, you have to figure it out. And I realized I was good at that. So when I got to college and I was trying to figure out what to major in, I came around and saw that there was one called Computer Information Systems, right? And as I saw that, I was like, oh, you know what? I kind of always liked computers, even when I was a kid. I was like, I think I would like to do that for a living. So, but as I said, the kind of two of the things intersect. So you want to get paid. So I don't think I'd be happy in this career probably if I was making, just a small amount of money where I could barely afford to live. But at the same time, I don't want to do it just because of the money either, right? Because that'll lead to burnout. You won't enjoy what you're doing and you'll eventually burn out, right? So I've kind of found that happy path where for me, I can make a living doing it and I can also make good money doing it. So those two are, they make me happy. And when I wake up in the morning, I don't ever feel like I'm going to a job. I'm a creative kind of person. I like to do, I write music. I mean, not write music. I've produced music in the past. I've written songs, mostly in the hip hop, format. But I've done poetry. I like to draw. I like things that give me a creative outlet. And so for me, software is a creative outlet because I can, solve problems creatively. And every problem doesn't have just a one, two, three, four. You can't look every problem up like on Stack Overflow and solve it that way. It just doesn't work that way. Some things, I had a problem the other day. There was a file that we were trying to like move to archive, and no one knew where this file existed. We couldn't figure out what the format of the file was, and we had to do just basic troubleshooting, and we eventually solved the problem. But the point of that is it allows me to be creative and solve problems, which is what I like to do. So, going back to your question, Microsoft to me, and I'm not a Microsoft salesman. It may come across like that, but, I am appreciative for their products because they've made such good products that they're integrated at so many companies that it helps me make a living. So, again, I don't want to come off like a Microsoft salesman, but at the end of the day, their products always have had great marketing. And that's where I think a lot of other products don't. So I look at, I'm not going to name competitors, but we all know who their competitors are. And a lot of the competitors don't have very compelling user interfaces. So when you go and you're working with any, software, you want it to look like something that, is eye catching and like your clients will like to work with it and it's easy to use and easy to learn. And I think that's where Microsoft's always been kind of ahead of the curve of other competitors. I use one cloud product and they wanted everything to be done almost at the command line. I'm like, this is too much, learning curve. I don't feel like, going command line for every single thing I need to do. With Microsoft, like in Azure, almost everything is a click of a button. Just boop, I'm done. Boop, I'm done, right? I'm not sitting there having to write command line for every single thing that I'm doing. Sometimes you have to, right? There are some things you want to do more complex. So you may use command line for that, but not every single thing. So, to me, that's always been their kind of strength is their UI design and their marketing. And so it makes it easy for me because I don't have to go in and sell a client on, hey, you should be using Power Platform because it does this. The client already knows that. They're like, oh yeah, I can do Power Automate to automate, some daily things that we do that I don't want to have to do manually. I can use Power Apps to design, some quick web pages by just connecting to the database. And now I can stand up, do it yourself UI for my users. So now they can do their own task and they don't have to do it manually. Or I can use, this one or that one and I don't have to sell that. They already know about the product because Microsoft marketed it so well. So that's kind of why I've stuck in it more than, say to move to other products or other competitors.
So that curiosity, that creative person in you, and made you to come into this creative field.
Yeah, and I think it helps me a lot because I don't see things kind of black and white. I always see gray areas. And in those gray areas is I think where I've made my niche a lot. Generally, I'll come into a situation with an open mindset of how the problem can be solved. I don't always believe, you can just do everything this way and can't do everything that way. It has to be some, a gray area, right? And that's my approach to software. I mean, a lot of other architects or engineers, not all, but a lot will tend to follow, it has to be this blueprint, has to be done this way. It's like, no, and there's no 100% you have to do it this way. You have to look at the use case. You have to look at the client. You have to look at your budget. You have to look at the skill set of your team members. If you want to come in, because some people are going to be more, advanced than others, right? And if you want to come in and write this thing from scratch, does your team have that skill set to support that? Or are you the only person on the team that can do that? And then you want to do it that way because that's what you're familiar with. I come in with the approach, hey, let's take everyone's skill set. Let's look at what they can do best, and then let's work as a team. And I think a lot of that comes from my sports background. So playing sports, you have the same problem, right? So if you're, I don't know what sport you may like, but if you like, basketball, or if you like this sport or that sport, if you look at every team, there'll be team members that, maybe they can shoot 3-pointers really well. And then you'll have team members that can dribble really well. And then you'll have some that can pass really well, but not every team member will be the best at every single skill set, right? So what is the coach's job? The coach's job is to find who does what, put them together in a lineup, and then try and create a winning team. I think it's the same with, whether it's software or whether it's, being in the industry, you got to take what you do best and then try and apply that to what the problem is that you're solving. And so that's where I think having a creative mindset, I don't just go in and look at it like, oh, no, that's the only way we can solve that problem. There's no other solution on earth. No, there's always another solution, right? And again, does the solution fit the team? Because I may build the most advanced solution of all, but then what happens when they let me go? Then you have to find another person that has that exact same mindset that I had, and then they'll have to come in, and now all your other team members can't support that product. To me, that's not the way to go. The way is you find what the team can do best, you take the tools that you have, and then you solve the problem using that. And that's, again, that's where I get to use my it's my creative outlet, right? So I get very antsy if I can't be creative, just because that's kind of how my mind works. So it helps me that I'm always able to do that in this field. And that's why I love working in software development. I'll probably do it until I can't keep up any longer, and my brain just starts to shut down, and I can't memorize or remember a lot of the things that I need to know. That's the only time I'll retire. I won't retire before then. I promise you that.
So, as a person who is interested in sports, I'm a sportsman as well. I'm a professional cricketer. I played cricket for a long time in my career, like 10 years. I represented for my district, state, and played some of the national tournaments. So, you tell me, as a person who are into sports, what are those qualities that you use or you relate with? With the present role or the job that you're doing as a consultant or working with Microsoft products. So what are those qualities that you picked up from sports that you relate and, make things happen in the
Yeah,
present
so I
role?
mean, I think the biggest one for me is always going to be, the old saying is kind of corny and everyone says it, but there's no I in team. That's the biggest one. I grew up playing team sports. I didn't play like an individual sport like swimming or golf. Well, swimming can have a relay, but let's just say golf, right? Golf's a one person sport, right? So everything's about what you can do. Tennis, unless you're doing doubles, tennis is a one person sport. It's about what you as a person can do. Teams, on the other hand, are about what the team can do, right? It's not about me trying to get the individual glory. It's about the team winning and the team getting the glory. And so, I can always kind of tell, it's funny to me because I can always kind of tell when I come to a job, the people who play team sports as opposed to the people who didn't play team sports growing up. The people who didn't play team sports seem to always be about what I can do, what my weaknesses are, what my strengths are. Whereas the people like me who grew up playing team sports, they always seem to be more, hey, what can the team do? I may have my own individual strengths and weaknesses, but if we combine all of our strengths, then we're a very strong team. right? Because everyone has something that they can bring to the table. I guarantee it could be whatever skill set. Maybe you are good at data analysis. Maybe you're good at programming. Maybe you're good at, QA. That's a skill that a lot of people don't have is QA, finding where there's a bug or finding where something doesn't work. Right. Maybe you're good at, teaching. Maybe you're good at, showing someone else how to do something. Whatever those are, that's the important thing to me that sports kind of helps you, with those same things. It's just focus on the team. Don't focus on yourself. Focus on the goal of the company or the project and you'll create a winning product, right? Otherwise, if everything's about team and it has to be my way and this way and that way, well, that's why you see, a really good team sometimes not win the championship, right? Because you let ego and personality take over the concept of team. So I just try and be about, what's best for the team and, I'm willing to help out and do things. I've had to do things that, I personally would not want to do on a lot of projects, right? Now, one thing with me though, I will say, I'm very big on automation. So I don't like tasks where you tell me go and do something manually. If you tell me to do it manually, I'll find a way to automate it. I promise you, I'm not going to sit at the computer and sort through 10,000 files or move things across manually. I'm going to write a program to do it. So I think it's also that kind of mindset of, hey, this also helps the team because now I'm not sitting at the computer for 6 hours working on this one thing. I did it for 8 hours once and now every other time it'll take 10 minutes to run it, right? So it's always that mindset of really how you can help the team. I think that's what sports teaches you, at least for me.
So, you have been working with the computer and communicating with the computer with the Microsoft products. Today, you become a people's person. So, which one do you like? Talking with people or talking with computer?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good segue. So I want to be able to talk about my nonprofit. And, I mentioned this to you is that I don't just do, for-profit work with Unifire. I also have a nonprofit that I started. And so I'll give you background. So about, I don't know, 4 years ago, I just decided, hey, I built up all this knowledge and I built up all these, networking connections and it's been, like I said, over 25 years in this industry. I was like, you know what? I feel like it's time to give back something to other people so that other people, who are now like me in my place, maybe 25 years ago, they're coming into IT or they're just graduating or they're just going to college or they're going to high school and they want to know what they're going to do in college. I want to give back to those people, right? So yeah, I think part of it is one thing is about career and one thing is about, trying to make your own living. But then another part of that is once you get in a comfortable place, are you going to go and then give back and help other people try and get to the place that you are, right? Or are you just going to, keep all your knowledge to yourself? And, I had a funny situation years ago. So I used to go and work out at the gym. And so I met a guy and I was like, I don't know, 22, 23, and I was about to graduate. And the guy told me, hey, I know you're about to graduate. When you graduate, give me a call. I'll see what I can do, at my company and, see what openings we have. And then, so I finally graduated maybe like a year later and I saw the guy at the gym again. And so I said, hey, you remember, you said you'd help me once I graduate. He's like, yeah, just give my company a call on the hotline and, see what they have. So he, he offered me no help after he told me he would help me, right? I mean, I could have looked that number up just in the newspaper, but, he gave no help. And, it wasn't my expectation that he would go and hand me a job. It was my expectation at least he would make an introduction to someone that may be hiring. So when I called the hotline, then I could, have an in on that, particular job, or at least be able to talk to the person and they knew who I was. So it always stuck with me. I was like, you know what? When I finally get to a point where I'm successful and I feel comfortable in my career, I'm not going to do that to someone. I'm going to try and help people because I remember that person that told me that they would help me and they didn't. Right. And so, like I said, about 4 years ago, I got into volunteering at my college. I graduated from University of Houston here in Houston, Texas. And so one of the things I said was, I want to go back and help those kids because, like I said, I remember when people didn't help me. And so one of the most fulfilling things is I went and I joined our alumni organization and I started volunteering. And one of the most fulfilling things at each event I participated in, the kids always would tell me, "Oh, wow, thank you so much. I appreciate, all of your insights, and it's so great that you come back and try and help, students." And so I wouldn't tell them the long version of that story, but I would always tell them like, yeah, because I remember when I graduated, I didn't have a lot of people who would help me. So I always said, I was going to remember that and I was going to come back. And so it's fun because it's come full circle now where I'm doing it as a actually project and a company. I'm not doing it just, just through U of H. I still volunteer out there. I did some volunteer work earlier this year and last year, but I also started my own nonprofit called The Prime Example. And The Prime Example, the focus is on educating students from low income backgrounds on the opportunities in STEM careers. So that's one of the interesting things. So we didn't really talk about it, but I think with artificial intelligence, you have to be careful to just say, I'm going to be a software engineer because I don't know what software engineering is going to look like 15 years from now, right? So I don't want to push someone to say, hey, just go learn Python or just go learn C sharp. I think those are great. I think students should try and do that. But at the same time, we don't know what the industry is going to look like. It could totally change even within the next year as generative AI and, AGI and all these things come into play. Um, you just don't know what it's going to look like. So what I try and tell people, focus on math, focus on science, learn a programming language, but don't focus on, I'm going to be a software engineer. I think that's the wrong approach, right? If you focus on those math and science backgrounds, you should be able to easily pivot into whatever the next, phase of IT looks like, right? Because again, it can completely change, at any point in time. I've seen, I've been in the industry, like I told you, 25 years. I've seen, the internet become, the most powerful thing in probably, I don't know, the last 500,000 years of mankind, maybe even more, right? One of the most powerful inventions of all time. I've seen, mobile phones become maybe the second most powerful thing of all time, right? To be able to take your life everywhere you go on a phone. That didn't even exist when I was a kid. It wasn't heard of. You had mobile capabilities, but you didn't have a pocket computer, right? That you could take everywhere. So who's to say what the next big invention will be? I mean, I'm sure it'll be something in the AI space, but I don't know how that's going to look. So I think I would be selling a student short to say, hey, go and be a software engineer. That's going to make you X amount of money over the next 10 years. I don't know that. What I do know is whatever those skill sets are that, will come to be in AI, they will require a deep understanding of math, right? There's no doubt about that because it's all based on, statistics and this and that. And it's all going to be math based. And then it's going to also require some level of understanding of science, right? You need to understand different, like how to form a hypothesis, the things that you learn basic in basic science classes. So that's kind of what I've tried to focus on, with the prime example is saying, hey, I don't know what your career may be, but I know it should be STEM if you really want to be competitive, in the upcoming next 20, 30 years. I don't care if you're going to be a lawyer, a doctor, or astronaut or anything. Everything's going to go STEM based because you're going to have to use some of those, components of artificial intelligence or, generative AI to do a lot of things that you need to do. Things are going to become more efficient, right? You can, now use, let's say I'm I don't know, person working on a novel and I want to draft, a concept. I could use artificial intelligence to draft a complete concept, and then I could take that concept and keep iterating on it through, my own, talents and things that I do as a person that writes novels. So every industry can make use of artificial intelligence. So that's why I say STEM based career. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be, a software coder. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a bio, tech kind of person. All it means is you're going to have some understanding of STEM when you use in your daily life and in your job and in, the way that you do things in your career. So that's become my focus really. It's just pushing kids and pushing people towards STEM and helping them keep learning, the science, technology, engineering, math components of whatever they're going to do. And so I think that's where the people part comes in, right? It's not just about, me as a software engineer and what I can do and what my talents are. It's about sharing those talents with other people, inspiring other people. And even if I don't inspire them, I may inspire someone that's going to inspire them. So, you don't know who you're going to reach. Um, we've done a few things. So we've been given a $1,500 grant from CenterPoint Energy Foundation, which is CenterPoint Energy is a utility company here in Texas. We've been donated to Houston Works U of H scholarship. So it's a scholarship at my college that I graduated from, a $500 scholarship. We've created our own scholarship with Texas Department of Criminal Justice and Alvin Community College so that people in prison who one day will be released in society can learn about STEM. So that was a $500 scholarship that we created this year and awarded to a student who, one of the things people ask me is, well, why would you want to work with people in prison? It's okay. Prison is supposed to be reformative, right? Prison is supposed to be a place that you go and you don't make the same mistake when you're released back into society. Well, if we don't educate the people about the possibilities of what's going to be there when they come back into society, wouldn't they likely go back to prison because they're going to go back and do the same things that they were doing before they went to prison? So I don't look at it as in someone went to prison, so we should cut them off from society and we should give them no help for the rest of their lives. No, I want to try and help you and inspire you that when you come out, there's other things that you can do. You don't have to go back to whatever life that you were living before, right? There's all kind of programs that you can take advantage of. So that's one of the things that we've done this year. We're doing a laptop backpack giveaway with a organization in San Antonio called Tech Block and with AT&T and T and some other sponsors. So we're giving away over 300 laptop backpacks to kids who are going to receive a free laptop. It'll be the first laptop that these kids have ever received in their lives. Some of them may not even, really have ever been on a computer for all I know. So those are the kind of things that, the prime example is focused on, especially going into 2025. I want to really focus on pushing kids even more into STEM because they're really going to need it, right? If they want to be able to survive in the next 25 to 30 years and be in the workforce and make a good living, they'll need those, capabilities. And so not just something I practice with, everyone else, I also preach it to my kids, right? STEM, STEM, STEM. I don't care if you're not great at U.S. history, right? that that's something you can always go back and learn. But it's going to be really hard to learn math once you're outside of school. You need to learn math while you're in school, right? You need to follow because it's like a building block, each step. If you miss one step, then, you're not going to be able to complete the entire, step all the way up, right? So I'm big on focus on that. And if anyone watches this and they take anything away, STEM. That's what I say. So thank you for that question.
That's great. You're not just, doing work for yourself. You're actually helping and inspiring a lot of people, and giving them the hope that we can able to do something. By looking at you, the way you are, looking at things and a particular experience of yours, actually, making you do and help more people like who have who are going through the same phase or who are into that age group.
Right. And like I said, if they're not inspired by me, that's okay. I may inspire the next Bill Gates for all I know. And maybe he's the person that inspires everyone. So it doesn't have to necessarily be through me, directly. It can be indirect. I'm happy to, and that's why I always try and tell people it's like you don't know who you're going to inspire. There's no way that you can know that, right? Because that's something that comes from within that person. That's not something that you can say, oh yeah, I know that I'm going to inspire. Like if I'm talking to you today, I don't know if I'm going to inspire you or not. Only that can come from you. So you never know who you may inspire, and that person may go on to inspire the rest of the world. So indirectly, you can make a huge impact. I'm sure Bill Gates had a mentor. I don't know who it is. I'm sure Bill Gates had someone he looked up to. I'm sure, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, anyone that you can think of that, is now, a very successful person had someone that they looked up to, or they had someone that inspired them at some point. And so that's what I hope to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be me that's going to inspire the world, but maybe through me, I can help inspire the world.
So how, this multi, skilled and, multi, talented, you are because you are into, understanding the Microsoft products and working on it all your life and also today, helping companies and helping businesses, giving them the right experts and also you have another side that, a social aspect, like you're thinking about others and you're trying to help them and, giving them the hope and trying to be inspiration for them. And also, you have music interests and you are into, I mean, you're passionate about sports. So how all these, multiple things in you actually, making things happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's one of those things like as I've gotten older, I realize, I like being very active. I like my mind being active, right? So I mentioned this earlier, I get bored if I'm just sitting doing the same thing. So I think that's part of it. It's not necessarily, if I have all these different skills, which I may have them, I may not. I mean, someone could listen to one of my songs and say, that's a terrible song, but that doesn't matter to me. The point is, it's an expression of my creative ability, right? And it's really being able to use that to do whatever I want to do that's more important to me than if necessarily I'm the best at it or if I'm the worst at it. I don't really worry about that. So, I mean, I could be the best programmer in my eyes and I could be the worst programmer in someone else's eyes. Those things don't really matter to me. It's more about I'm able to use whatever talent I have to help people or to solve a problem or to do something, then I get some, benefit out of it. I get some joy out of it. And so I think that's kind of what keeps me, able to move through different things. So before we got on this call, I was looking at, all the different sports games that are happening today. And I was trying to figure out, I like to do what they call fantasy sports. And I don't know if you know about fantasy sports or not, but it doesn't really matter whether you do or don't. You can just think of it as a game of chance. So you can pick different players from different teams and whatever sport you a lineup, and then you can compete against each other to win prizes, right? So I was looking at that before we got on the call. And then this morning I was working on stuff for, some of my business clients and things of that nature. So my mind's always, it's all over the map. It's not like I'm just doing one thing at one time. I may jump at 1 minute, I may be on talking to you, and then 10 minutes from now, I may be looking at something with hip hop music, just, I think to me, they all come together though, because it's kind of all the same kind of creative, background and just, I want to be able to use my mind to do more than one thing. I don't want to just be focused on computers and I don't just want to focus on sports. And I also like politics and, historical stuff. So I spend a lot of time reading Wikipedia. I may get on Wikipedia and read about, something that happened in the United States or something that happened in India or something that happened in Czechoslovakia or something that happened in any country 300 years ago. And just it'll be a random rabbit hole that I'll jump in because I like exposing my mind to information. And so I read an article that said that, if you're a constant learner and constantly trying to grow your mindset, you also can avoid, certain mental decline as you get older. It said that people who do puzzles or people that play chess, which I happen to play chess, they've shown that their cognitive decline is slower than other people's cognitive decline because you keep the parts of your brain working that if you don't, use those parts of your brain, they actually just will decline on their own. Whether it's not just about age, it's about memory use, right? They say the brain is a muscle. So if I don't lift weights, right, my muscles are going to become, atrophied over time, right? So it's the same concept. I believe in kind of using my mind. Yeah, this morning I played like 5 games of chess, right? So it's just constantly doing things that are creative or learning or, those type of things. Those are fun for me. I don't consider them work. I don't consider them, difficult. So I think that's why I'm able to do them because I enjoy doing them.
So where people can find you and learn from you on the internet.
The best place really for me is LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn Unifire page, Unifire. There's a Unifier prime example page. You can go and find the prime example. And also you can just look me up, Sean Joseph, SeanJoseph on LinkedIn. Those are my main platforms because most of my stuff is, really work related. So I don't necessarily have the Twitters and the Instagrams and all those things, but I try and keep up with the times. I know that, a lot of people use those platforms too. So maybe one day as the prime example keeps growing, we'll create some of those, platforms for that. But a lot of the work that we're doing right now is kind of behind the scenes. I'm not trying to be in the, spotlight right at this moment. We're trying to build a foundation of what we want to do. Me and my, board member, who's also my best friend, Marshall Hill, and our other board member as well. We're trying to build a foundation of what we want to do. So you can't always find what we're doing online right now because we're building that foundation. As that foundation gets built, then you'll be able to hear more about the prime example. But right now, it's kind of like in startup mode. I'm in a, kind of incubator mode, right? So yeah, if you want to find me, just go to LinkedIn. I promise you'll be able to get in touch with me.
I'll put your web links in the description of this video, also on the screen as well. Also, I'll put your web links and about you on my website. People who visits my website or finds this video or anywhere in the internet can able to see the work that you're doing, can able to learn from you and can able to see what changes that you're doing and how it is helping and creating positive change in the uh, people and in the society.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to reach out, feel free. Just send me a message, a direct message on LinkedIn, and I promise I'll respond to it. So I get a lot of those because I've done other of these kind of things, especially with the University of Houston, and people will connect with me on LinkedIn, and I've had some of those people in my network over 4 or 5 years now. So yeah, feel free. I'm an open networker, and I'm always willing to not only talk about myself but to learn from others too. So I'm still learning. I learn every day. So, if you want to reach out and teach me something, that's fine too.
Great. At last, as an expert, as a person who is into Microsoft and also as a people's person, as also a person who is inspiring the younger generation, what is your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
Yeah, no, so like I said, I mean, you and I have talked for a while. So, I've known about your work for, I think, over a year now, maybe even closer to 2 years. So, no, I think, and just like, what you said about me, I think it's awesome what you're doing. I mean, you give kind of the everyday person a chance to, show what they're doing, which you don't always get to see. Like a lot of people wouldn't have known about what I'm doing with the prime example because I don't really publish it that much and I'm not making it that vocal to the world. So, you're giving people a chance to see what other people are doing in their daily lives, because we as a whole all contribute something to society, some good, some bad, but, everyone contributes something to society. And you're giving a lot of people who are doing some good a chance to show what they're doing. And that's not something you see every day. Everyone wants to interview a celebrity or everyone wants to interview the person, with 10 million followers on Instagram. That's great. And I'm sure you'll interview some of those people if you haven't already. But I like that you're also interviewing people who may only have, 10 people following them on Instagram or 100 people following because they have something that they're doing that maybe just you don't know about. And maybe they're making a positive impact that is just not being announced to the world. Like I'm not, me personally, I'm not out for pats on the back that, hey, you're doing such a great job in society. That's not my goal and that's not my focus. I just want to do the work and have those positive outcomes. And so you're giving me a chance to tell my story that, that's a good thing in and of itself. So no, keep up the good work. And definitely I've known about you for a few years. So yeah, definitely I've seen your interviews and I think you're doing a great, great work.
A lot of points in this conversation that you have said, will work for a lot of people who will be watching and listening to this, and I'm sure they'll take this as a driving force. And I'm sure after listening to you, at least some positive change and, that constructive, mindset like you, because you have shared one of the experience that made you, do something and today you're helping, there are some of the important points that you said definitely that is going to impact that. And you are going to be the, reason for the change that, that happens in people who listens to you and, who will implement that in their lives.
Right, yeah, and I appreciate that. And I mean, that's kind of, you said it almost. It's be the change that you want to see, right? So, and that's what kind of my focus is. It's be that change, right? I can't wait for other people to do it, right? Because if you wait, nothing will happen. Or maybe it'll happen, but you don't know when it'll happen. But if you're out there actively trying and going for it, and you never know. You never know. So, thank you. I appreciate that.
One observation of yours, which means a lot to me, as a person who is into technology from 25 years, I'm a DevOps engineer. I'm a cloud DevOps engineer. That's my full-time role. I have done masters in software engineering, also bachelors in computer science and engineering. I'm working right now as a cloud DevOps engineer, AWS Cloud DevOps Engineer. So, for a London company. So, apart from that, I'm interviewing experts like you who are into different parts of the world and who are into different industries and who are working in different levels and different roles and and also who are working in different companies. And also, I interviewed police officers, doctors, authors, psychologists, politicians. Like I try to go out of the technology industry and try to interview people who are completely, in other industries. And I try to interview, business owners, CEOs, CFOs, CROs, and also uh, the vice president of Amazon Web Services, Jeff Barr, and Salesforce vice president. Like I have interviewed a lot of leaders and also engineers, architects, like all kind of people from more than 100 countries. Experts I have interviewed in last 3-4 years, and also more than 800 plus interviews I have done. So apart from my engineering work, I'm doing this like people's work. So how this work is going to helpful for me in my career, and it is going to help me in doing my further things that I'm going to do in my professional life.
Yeah, so I think the main point I would say to that is, you know, as I showed or as we discussed, you can do more than one thing. You can be more than one thing, right? So the biggest observation for me is, that I've had in my career is being that open learner, where you don't know everything. Even when you think you know everything, there's always something new to learn. So I went to see a movie last night, and in the movie, they were saying some things about religion that I didn't even know. And, I didn't go fact check them yet. I'm going to fact check them today because I saw the movie late at night. But they were saying some things about different religions that were interesting. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that. And I read a lot and I know a lot about a lot of religions. But they said some new things I hadn't heard. So, always be that open learner. If you're in DevOps, like I said, DevOps may look totally different 10 years from now. So you may, want to keep up with AI agents, right? So AI agents are, going to take the place of a lot of things that software engineers do. If they keep, doing the, path that they're going. I don't know if it'll impact DevOps, but I'm sure it will in some form or fashion. So, being that open learner, I think is the main observation I would give back to you. You know, always reading. I'm always reading on tech stuff, world stuff, history stuff, because history helps us learn from the mistakes of others so that we don't repeat those mistakes, right? So just be that open learner. And if you're that open learner, you'll continue to do great in your career, not only in IT, but also with your, social podcast. Because podcasts are also a thing where you have to constantly, navigate changes and, 10 years ago, podcasts looked totally different than they do now, right? So it's actually funny because they were popular and then they got unpopular and then they got popular again after COVID. So, who knows what the next 10, 15 years will bring. So if you want to continue to do this, yeah, like I said, just be that open learner. That would be the only real observation I give to you. Constantly adapting to change, right? You can't sit and do what you did 5 years ago and just say, oh, it's going to work. Oh, interesting about that. So 3 years ago, my Unifier was doing the most business I've ever done. Revenue was just off the charts. And then about a year and a half ago, it started, going down, and it's been on a downward trajectory revenue wise since then. So I had to pivot. I had to learn some new things, and I had to try some new sales, tactics to bring in more revenue. And while I was doing those things, I learned some stuff about myself that, hey, I'm actually kind of okay at sales. I didn't think I was, but I was able to create my own client out of having lost some clients just over time. The economy hasn't been the greatest here in the US. I don't know about other places, but hasn't been the greatest here. So, but I was able to prove, hey, I can also do sales if I need to. So, it's, being in your career, whatever it is, just like I said, always that constant change, constant learning. That's what you'll have to do.
Definitely. Can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yeah, sure. I would like to, and that's one of the things I think we had talked about working and doing an interview a few years ago, but I wasn't really kind of in the space that I am now. I wanted to talk more about, like I said, my nonprofit work. So I think now has been the perfect timing. So yeah, I definitely would appreciate it because I want to start getting our message out to people of what we're doing.
Definitely. And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
You got my permission.
Yeah. Sure, Sean. Thank you very much for your valuable time and sharing some of your experiences and answering to my questions and giving some inspiration to my audience.
I appreciate it, and I hope they are inspired. And thank you again for the invite. And I hope you have a great rest of your, well, I think it's nighttime for you. Have a great sleep.
So, have a good day, Sean. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye bye.